Great. Now, Hunter, you've kind of circulated in all of these different sectors. You are in business right now, but you serve as the chairman of the World Food Program USA, and you've obviously been around government your whole life. I'd like to just ask you to talk about sort of what brought you to World Food Program, what role you see development taking in broader U.S. foreign policy, and how we can better leverage that.
Well, my organization, the company that I run, is a little bit smaller than Hess and Abbott and Ethan Allen. So
that's okay.
Yeah, just a little bit smaller. But you know, so I think I look at it much more from the perspective of the hat that I wear as the chairman of the World Food Program US, and it seems pretty self-evident. I think that a number of your panelists have probably already covered a lot of this, but at the risk of repetition, I think at least in 3 areas our foreign policy is absolutely dependent upon foreign assistance. The first is just simply our moral obligation from my point of view. You know, 1 in 8 people in this world go hungry every night. And from simply the perspective of our moral obligation, I think that it's in our DNA as a country. And I think it informs our values. And not only that, I think it has the potential of informing the world of our values. And so simply from that perspective, I think that it has I'd say I'm certain a number of people here, or probably the majority of people here, have been to Dadaab, to a refugee camp, whether it was Dadaab or another. They've been to a school feeding program, whether it was in Afghanistan or in Kibera, and seen those sacks of food that say, gift from the American people. And I think that has a significant impact on our foreign policy in the long term. I like to think that it has a significant impact. The second is just in our naked self-interest, and that's economic. I think if you look at it, and I think that Ambassador Green touched upon this earlier, was that out of our 15 largest trading partners, 11 were former recipients of U.S. Foreign assistance. So from my perspective, it seems to me where 95% of our customer base is outside of the United States, it makes all the sense in the world, whether you are Chevron, Abbott, Hess, Ethan Allen, or any U.S. company, to look to lift up the rest of the world simply for the single purpose of trade and our ability to grow our own economy. And then the last place where I think that there really it makes an enormous amount of difference, and I find that more and more, not only whether it's at WFP USA or I sit on the board of USGLC, a number of other organizations. I teach a class at Georgetown, and we talk about this constantly, about advocacy. Our foreign assistance is a vital, in my opinion, to our national security. I think that if you look at what happened between 2008 and 2009, where you saw food prices spike, and in the wake of that, you saw over 40 countries that had major and significant riots. I think that there is a direct link. I also think that there is an obvious direct link in terms of the places where you have the greatest humanitarian need are also some of the places where we will see in the future and currently our greatest security focus. Just take, for instance, Syria, Yemen, Mali, the list goes on. But those are the places, for instance, where WFP is in operation and constantly operating in order to be able to get emergency assistance in. But for the rest of the world and for all of the other actors out there, including CARE and other organizations, other NGOs, it seems to me that as it relates to our security, I don't think that you could find someone in the military that's been acting in the field that wouldn't say that our biggest bang for our buck is in our foreign assistance programs. Well, first of all, I think that you cannot underestimate the power and the need for a government-to-government relationship. The truth of the matter is that issues relating to rule of law, security, it's absolutely essential that they have the imprimatur of the U.S. government to be able to do that. But in terms of the innovation, the ability to to address a critical need that may depend upon a technology or a business process. The U.S. government is not very good at that. They can be good at partnering and finding people to be able to help with that. There's a number of organizations that are, I think, doing a great job, including some inside USAID, OPIC, XM, others that have been very powerful in terms of that. But the truth of the matter is, is that I think we are doing a pretty good job in terms of engaging the private sector to enable solutions. In 1969, 70% of our foreign assistance came directly from the U.S. government. Today, 80% of our foreign assistance comes directly from the private sector. I think that says a lot to begin with in terms of the way that it has shifted. Now, that's not to say that there is not, again, a critical need for at least that 1% of our foreign assistance in our budget to at least be maintained, if not increased. I think that the U.S. government has done a great job over that from 1969 today to allow for private sector to play the role that they have played. And in terms of examples, I mean, from the WFP alone, which is in many ways the largest humanitarian organization in the world, just in terms of raw numbers, you know, what WFP has been able to do in terms of supply chain management is pretty revolutionary. I think that, you know, as much as we have studied UPS, UPS has come to study WFP. The largest fleet of airplanes, I think, that is owned by one organization, not private, in the world, and move amounts of food around the world, not only on an emergency basis, but in just a constant movement that is mind-boggling. But we've also been able to do things like target just specific needs with small technologies. I know that I visited in the northwestern part of Kenya on the border with Sudan, which used to be a big launching point for a lot of the WFP supplies to go into Sudan. And that has obviously dissipated in recent years. But we've, in Turkana, we have used, for instance, Israeli technology as it relates to planting bun technology, which I can't explain, and please don't ask me to explain because I'm not a farmer. But I was there, and I think Howard Buffett had visited, and it's small technology, but it is making an enormous difference in the everyday lives of smallhold farmers, small leasehold farmers, which make up over, I think, 500 million small leasehold farmers out there that are in abject poverty, and also many of them are the ones in the greatest need, even though they're in that agricultural food chain. So in terms of, you know, private sector involvement, I think it ranges from the incredibly large things that a Chevron or an Abbott or Ethan Allen or Hess can do to trying to figure out ways with NGOs where you find little technologies that can make a real difference in the course of millions of people's lives over the course of generations. So, oh, and I think again, there are so many, I think, but I just look at what Walmart and Coca-Cola are doing in terms of agriculture and clean water, in conjunction with USAID. And I think it will be transformative. I look at what a company like Yum Brands does in terms of just corporate giving and the ability that they give to World Food Program just through a very innovative way to involve all of their partners around the world in giving. I think that programs like that are the future. A little shout out for the Foreign Commercial Service. It's an unbelievably underused asset. The Foreign Commercial Service as an entry point into any country, just to begin with right here in DC, is an incredibly invaluable tool just to start, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises. And it's amazing how few people access that knowledge and knowledge base. And, you know, sometimes it can also be a little bit of bureaucracy like anything in government can be, but I've had nothing but incredible success, particularly for smaller to medium-sized enterprises that are looking to enter into markets. So that's I used to work for the Department of Commerce, so that's for Secretary Daley. He would have liked to hear me say that. Now, in terms of the large idea of should we have a comprehensive approach, I think it's kind of self-evident we should have a comprehensive approach. It doesn't make any sense to kind of only treat the symptom or the disease, but not the underlying symptoms of the disease. I think PEPFAR is the best example of a working model about how to go about doing that. I know that PEPFAR is not without its problems, but PEPFAR didn't just come onto the scene with antiretroviral drugs and simply on an emergency basis and distribute those drugs. They also had prevention programs. They had education programs. They had nutrition programs that all went along with that, which I think have, on varying degrees of success, added to the overall acceptance of PEPFAR as an incredibly positive program generated from the U.S. government, assisted by the private sector, and distributed throughout most of sub-Saharan Africa, and now other places in the world. So, as an example, PEPFAR is where you begin. It's interesting to me from the WFP, there is because there are finite resources, there's always going to be a fight within the NGO world between the emergency assistance people and the development people. And I'd fight maybe too strong a word. There's always going to be a tension between that. And some of the tension is when we get into each other's lanes. I hope going forward we're going to have a lot more cooperation along that level, because I think that some of the long-term emergency assistance groups that are out there that have been in country for a very long time on an emergency basis that has just continued. Take the Dadaab as a perfect example. Have a lot of on-the-ground knowledge to be able to take some of the development programs and instill them into the areas where they have real expertise. At the same time, we can't forget about the need for emergency assistance. Mm-hmm. And where dollars are finite and they are becoming more and more hard to find in this environment, at least within the U.S. and also globally. It doesn't matter if you have the best ag development program that we could possibly conceive as an entire group if the vast majority of your population is suffering from acute malnutrition. It just doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you are not going to have a population in which that can benefit from that ag development program. So we have to look at both, and we have to take both into consideration. And I think if we did a lot better job of working together on that, from the emergency side and the development side, you'd come up with, and we have been. And this isn't all bad news. The good news is that I think that a lot of organizations have been able to do that. But it's going to take a lot more cooperation at the end of the day in order for us to get it right. But obviously, a comprehensive approach is better than some of the things that we have been falling back upon, and that just covering the wound with a Band-Aid, only to see us back where we were whether months or years ago.
Hunter, you want to?
In mine, I have 3 daughters.
Okay.
I had to name my dog Brother. FAO estimates that if you gave the same access to agricultural inputs as men to women, you can increase production by 20 to 30%, reducing the number of chronically hungry people in the world by 100 to 150 million people. Wow. It's amazing the impact of providing women with the tools to be able to compete or to be able to simply feed their own children, what it does to an entire community. And I know that the Secretary Clinton has been harping on this for the last 4 years, and long before that, many women that have gone before her, and many men that have gone before her,